Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us from Tokyo. We are wrapping up Oregon's 12-day trade mission to both Japan and Korea. Our timing was perfect for Oregon to rekindle and strengthen our existing trade relationships in these two countries, our sixth and fourth largest trading partners. And it was a wonderful opportunity to pursue new economic development opportunities for Oregon companies. As you all probably know, Oregon's strong trade relationship with both Korea and Japan has contributed to Oregon seeing the fifth fastest export growth in the United States over the past 5 years. We were only one of 6 states to see positive export growth during the pandemic. Critically important because Oregon is one of the most trade-dependent states in the entire country. In Korea, in addition to enjoying fabulous Korean food, we had incredible opportunities to introduce Oregon products to Korean customers. This is a highly concentrated population with a very large spending power. We have great opportunities in our agricultural sector. Oregon blueberries are already popular, and we spoke with Korean leaders about allowing the import of both Oregon blackberries and raspberries as well. Korea is Oregon's third largest export market for food and agricultural products and the largest market for Oregon's fresh blueberries. In Japan, we've been able to continue our 30-year relationship with the Toyama Prefecture. Last year was Oregon's 30th anniversary of our sister state prefecture relationship with Toyama. And Governor Nita visited Oregon in August. I wanted to return the favor, and we visited Toyama for a couple of days earlier this week. But we certainly have had a series of productive meetings around the semiconductor industry in Japan. Hitachi, for example, has facilities in Hillsboro that are part of Intel's semiconductor research and development ecosystem. I think particularly following the investment of the CHIPS funding and the resources that will be available to the industry and the sector in Oregon, there are huge opportunities to partner around semiconductors with Japan. With that, I'll just say, moving forward, we have incredible opportunities for tourism, for educational exchange, and of course for economic development to enhance the regions of both Japan and Korea and Oregon, and particularly as we anticipate direct flights from Portland to Incheon, Korea, as well as Portland to Haneda to return sometime in 2023. So with that, that's my report out this morning. Happy to take questions. Again, thanks so much for joining me, and it's good to see all of you.
Thanks, Governor. For our reporters in the Zoom room, if you have a question for the Governor, please use the raise your hand function and we'll get you going. All right. Governor, first question is going to go to Elliot with the Oregonian. Go ahead, Elliot.
Thank you, Governor. I was hoping you could elaborate a little bit on the semiconductor industry and can you speak to what some of the kinds of investments that you were talking to companies and others about in Japan and Korea in that industry?
With the help of the U.S. Embassy, we had 2 roundtables, one in Japan and one in Korea. Great foreign direct investment roundtables with companies from the semiconductor industry in both countries. I will say the dynamics around Korea and Japan are a bit different. In Japan, it was very clear that when our semiconductor industry is doing well, the Japanese businesses that are engaged in this sector also benefit. and Hitachi is a great example of that. And we had a great meeting with them. In Korea, the dynamics are a little different, but I fully expect that the meetings that we had, it was an extensive roundtable with several companies. We had follow-up phone calls from those meetings immediately afterwards. So I fully expect we will see some interest from the Korean semiconductor industry following our visits there.
Great, thank you. Next question, Governor, is from Dick Hughes. Go ahead, Dick.
Thank you. As I try to navigate the various buttons here, good morning, Governor, wherever you may be. I have a couple of questions. My first question, Governor, is why do a trade trip now when you're near the end of your term?
Thank you, Dick, for that question. As you know, it is typical for governors to take annual trade missions abroad to assist with economic development opportunities. Asia is a particularly strong market for us, particularly in the semiconductor industry and the agricultural industry. So we thought it was important, given that both Korea and Japan are just opening up now. Literally, Japan just opened up 2 weeks ago to renew and rekindle the relationships that we developed in our last mission in 2019. Because of the pandemic, we haven't had the opportunity to travel to Asia. And as you know, Oregon is one of the most trade-dependent states in the entire country. And then lastly, I think it's incredibly important at this time in my administration for us to reconnect with our partners in Japan and Korea to set up the ongoing relationships for the next administration. I think it's fair to say that Oregon export growth was absolutely strong during the pandemic. That verified our efforts to come to Asia prior to the pandemic, and I'm confident that our visits here will continue to result in economic growth for both Oregon and the companies that we are working with. What is most important about Asia, however, and particularly Japan and Korea and then other countries, is the fact that in order to do business, you have to develop personal relationships. And while I certainly have had the opportunity to do that in times past, given the break that the pandemic caused, it was really important to renew these friendships and to rekindle economic development opportunities.
Thank you. And one other question, and this may sound odd, but my question is, what did you learn about Oregon from this trip that you might not have known before?
I have to tell you, both Korea and Japan love Oregon blueberries, and I knew that these countries loved this Oregon product, but it blew me away. Everywhere we went, folks talked about Oregon blueberries, and they're being very creative in their use, from every morning for breakfast to making sure they're used in treats such as frozen yogurt pops and, of course, yogurt, and I suspect a little bit of ice cream. I was just blown away. The other product that, of course, I am well aware that both the Japanese and Koreans were very excited about was Oregon Pinot Noir. And we were very pleased to have the executive director of the Oregon Wine Board accompanying us on this trip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dick. Next question goes to Peter Wong with the Portland Tribune.
Hi, good morning over there. Variation on Dick's question. Oregon has built these relationships over 3 decades or so, ever since Victor Tia was governor. I know governors change, governments in the host countries change. How does Oregon sustain a relationship, given that obviously there will be changes inevitably in both state and national government leadership?
So let me talk about the personal relationships first, and then I'll talk about the economic relationships. So the personal relationships. We had a women's leadership meeting in Toyama with women leaders from the prefecture yesterday. And one of the women came up to me, and she had a photo from the Oregon State Capitol that she traveled to 29 years ago. And she was literally sitting in the governor's desk. And she had held on to that photo for over 28 years. And she didn't even know where she was at the time. She was a young girl. And now, obviously, she's a grown woman, and she still has that photo. That's the level that the Japanese, I think, treasure their relationships with Oregonians and Americans. Governor Nita, who is a novice politician, 2 years as governor of the prefecture of Toyama, he told a story about hanging out with Governor Atiya. They were smoking at the time. And Governor Atiya, as you know, was really responsible for Oregon's tremendous relationship with Japan. But Governor Nita, now a new politician, remembers hanging out with our very own Governor Atiya. So that's the personal relationships. Let me tell you one story in terms of our efforts to be on trade mission before. In 2019, we met with a number of companies while we were in Seoul. As a result, the company Coupang, which is a Korean, it's like the Amazon Korean. They would argue it's better and faster and more efficient. I'm not going to get engaged in that. They have a relationship with the Oregon Food Products Company, and that was directly the product of our 2019 trade mission.
Thank you, and I hope the woman doesn't ask for your chair when you come back.
I will say the Japanese women were quite tickled when I told them that all 3 candidates for governor were women. They got a kick out of that.
Thanks, Peter. Governor, we are going to go back to Elliot Muse with the Oregonian. Go ahead, Elliot.
Thank you. Governor, given the interest that you heard on your trade mission and the urgency that's been expressed on the semiconductor issue, are you contemplating a special session to examine examine some of the task force priorities that have been identified, and how do you envision handing that issue off to the next governor and legislature?
Thanks, Elliot. Well, I think it's absolutely critical to seize the opportunities in front of us now in the highly competitive semiconductor industry. Excited, very, very excited to see Oregon continue to attract and grow semiconductor companies, and frankly, to create a productive environment for the industry. As you're well aware, I'm investing $1 million in the from the Strategic Reserve Fund for industrial land readiness. And we have been working on a package since spring to be ready for day one of the 2023 legislative session. I think there's a couple of things that are incredibly important, and these were highlighted by our meetings in both, frankly, Korea and Japan. Number one, the opportunities around workforce development. As you know, we have invested $200 million in Future Ready Oregon. We are still discussing with key legislators and my team about do we direct specific dollars from Future Ready Oregon to enhance the workforce development opportunities for this particular industry. We are absolutely committed to our ongoing work to streamline environmental regulatory process. I asked the legislature for resources for DEQ. They delivered on that. I fully expect that to be part of a package for 2023. I'm very excited about the work we are doing around industrial land readiness and creating toolkits for local communities, local regions, and obviously incredibly important that we target our support for our higher education institutions to enhance curriculum and integrate the incredible workforce opportunities for Future Ready Oregon. Interestingly enough, one of my most, I'll just say, sort of out-of-the-box thinking conversations came from Ambassador Rahm Emanuel. As you recall, he was mayor of Chicago for 8 years, and he is very committed and understands the importance of both creating a seamless system of education to ensure that our students are career ready, but also ensuring that our students have the opportunity to compete in a global economy. And he gave to me some very creative ideas that I am pursuing with my team about specifically how we target investments to ensure that more students throughout Oregon have access to a STEM or STEAM curriculum that is both affordable and accessible. Lastly, I just want to say, Elliot, the reason why I am so passionate about this sector is because the best way out of poverty for Oregonians is a good paying job. And these are really good paying jobs. And we have an opportunity to grow this sector, particularly in dense, high poverty areas of the state like East County, and frankly, outside the metropolitan area. And I think that's something that both Republicans and Democrats, and I'll just say independents, really welcome.
Great, thank you, Governor. We have time for one more question. We're going to go to Dirk Vanderhart with OPB. Go ahead, Dirk.
Hey, good morning, Governor. This is slightly off topic, but in the last week or so, we've seen Tina Kotek increasingly sort of calling you out for being not active on the homeless issue. And I wondered if you had a response to that, if you've heard those, and just to give you a chance to respond to that since you've endorsed her.
Well, first of all, as you are well aware, I've been in Asia for the last 12 days and haven't had an opportunity to see any of the commercials. But I'm frankly really pleased with the work that my administration has done in strong partnership with the Oregon legislature. This is work that has truly been bipartisan to invest in ensuring that everyone across Oregon has a warm, safe, dry, affordable, and accessible place to call home. We have made significant investments, and frankly, I think there's been no other administration that has invested at the level we have. Unfortunately, Dirk, as you well know, it feels like it's just the tip of the iceberg. And so I look forward to meeting with the next governor-elect, whoever she is, to talk about her plans for housing in Oregon. As you know, the mission of our Oregon Housing and Community Services Agency has really changed, evolved since I became governor. At the outset, we're focused on investments in affordable housing and housing preservation. Now we are also an agency that is really focused on preventing homelessness. And as you are well aware, we delivered the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We were one of the top 5 states in the country that got money out the fastest. So I'm really proud of the work my administration has done. I am fully aware that it feels like not enough. And I look forward to working with the next governor-elect as she transitions and hearing about her plans about investing in affordable housing and homelessness prevention.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Governor. We are a wrap on our end.
Thank you all so very much. Appreciate your time and energy.